Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We will get started. I know that Dr. Yoon is coming in on our webinar very soon, but we would like to get our housekeeping and our welcome and our thank you for everyone joining us ready. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you all for joining us for the 2021 Howard County Association of Realtors State of the Market webinar. My name is Jessica Coates. I am your Chief Executive Officer here at the Howard County Association of Realtors, better known as HCAR. So just a little bit about our trade association here in Howard County, Maryland. We provide advocacy, continuing education, and trade services to over 2,000 realtors and affiliate members across this great county. We are dedicated to the health and vitality of the local real estate market and community with the goal to make Howard County an excellent place to live, work, and play. Just a little housekeeping rules before we get started. If you have any questions during this wonderful presentation today, please type them in your chat, okay? We will be monitoring them as Dr. Yoon presents. We will present them to him during the Q&A portion towards the end of this webinar. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing our 2021 Board President, Ms. Shirley Matlock.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Today, we're presenting the 2021 State of the Market update with the famous Dr. Lawrence Yoon, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Dr. Yoon is the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of Research at the National Association of Realtors. He oversees and is responsible for a wide range of research activity for the association, including NAR's existing home sales statistics, affordability index, and the home and sellers profile report, which, if you haven't downloaded already, I recommend you do so from NAR's website. Dr. Yoon regularly provides commentary on real estate market trends for NAR's 1.4 million realtors. When the pandemic started over a year ago, there was a lot of concern about how the real estate market and the economy in general would be impacted. Thankfully, in Maryland, realtors and other real estate service providers were deemed essential personnel, thanks to your RPAC dollars at work. So we could continue to serve our clients throughout that shutdown. Since then, we've seen an unprecedented surge in buyer activity as many people are seeking to take advantage of the historically low interest rates. This has caused a serious inventory issue, with almost every home listed receiving multiple offers, well over listing price. It is truly and firmly a seller's market. Dr. Yoon will talk to us about how these conditions have played out across the country, as well as regionally, and how he sees our industry faring for the remainder of the pandemic and beyond. So now, without further comments from me, I know you're waiting to hear from Dr. Yoon. Let me introduce to you the person that you all been waiting to hear from. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Lawrence Yoon.
Thank you, President Shirley, for the introduction. Great leadership in the Howard County with President Shirley, Jessica Coates leading the way. And as mentioned, 1 year ago, when we faced the pandemic, great uncertainty, regarding our life, just how daily activity, we were all sheltering in place. I remember going to the grocery store, just quickly in and out, but once I brought a few things in, disinfected the whole boxes and everything. We didn't know about the mask, social distancing. I hope everyone has been safe. And now, from the housing market condition is that, after that uncertain time, the housing market truly boomed in the second half of last year. as consumers face record low mortgage rate at all-time low, trying to take advantage of the situation. Uh, and the market condition. I mean, today, Howard County, the attractiveness of the Howard County, possibly because the days on the market is only 6 days on average. You list a home, it's done within a week. In the month supply, a healthy month supply would be about 6 months supply, but it is less than a month. That's how fast moving, swiftly market condition is. Let me upload the PowerPoint because I speak better with slides, visuals. It's also easier to comprehend. So let me go into this. So one area of concern is that the second half of last year was truly a boom, meaning that home sales exceeded the pre-pandemic conditions. So even doing better than what happened before the pandemic, truly boom, up about 20% from 1 year before. But now we are beginning to sense that the sales are coming down a bit from those peak levels. It is still up from 1 year ago. So, it's about 10% above 1 year ago, but it is not 20% above 1 year ago. And that's why you see a little topping out condition. If we look at newly built home builder activity, a similar picture that after a robust activity late last year, beginning to come down. So rather than, again, 20% increase, now they are seeing only modest, single-digit percentage increases. So what is the reason for this? Is it the fact that the buyers have retreated? They're getting frustrated with multiple offers. And also today, mortgage rates are actually a little bit higher compared to December, January period. So are the buyers essentially being squeezed out or tapped out? So what is the reason for this decline? And the decline in the sales activity is due to the record low inventory condition. We have never seen inventory level this low. So if the inventories are not there, home sales simply cannot click along. Buyer enthusiasm remains sky high. Buyers are out there. You see the multiple offers. So the buyer interest still remains very strong. We simply don't have enough inventory to satisfy the demand, and sales are not clicking. If we had hypothetically 30% more inventory, we would have 30% more home sales. It's just simple equation as that given the strong demand conditions. And one interesting development is we have a record low inventory. So the blue line is just replicating what was shown before. But the orange line is the total NAR membership, realtors. And what you see is that we are at a record high. So we are in an unusual situation where we have more members than the number of listings. So, this is a condition where you can obtain the listing. I mean, it is as good as gold, just because you can find a buyer. So very unusual circumstance where we actually have more members than the number of inventory. And regarding the membership in the state of Maryland, which Howard County is a major player, is that it's been steadily growing from year 2015. Now, part of this reason is home prices have steadily risen, sales sort of cranking out small gains and the surge of last year. So based on what I'm seeing as of March of this year on the membership, then Maryland is probably going to have about 28,000 members. And I think the total inventory today in Maryland is about 10,000. So you can, again, do the simple math. But this does not mean that you are not doing the business. It just means that once you get the inventory, it's been sold in 6 days, and then you have to search for the new inventory. So the sales activity is still up from 1 year ago. So in terms of business dollar revenue, it is coming along. But some people think that real estate is an easy business. They want to try it out. They quickly realize it's not. It's not easy. It's very, very challenging environment, especially for people in the business for the first couple of years, trying to develop that network, trying to provide the maximum service so you can get that referral and recommendation from friends, family members, colleagues, which then builds the network over time. So that's the situation regarding membership, which means also a large degree of competition. Now let's look at the inventory condition by price bucket. So the largest decline in inventory is on the lower price point. But one simple reason for that is that that particular house has now appreciated, so it's getting pushed out of that price bucket. But nonetheless, you see that it is very difficult to find home on the more affordable range. You have to really go up in the $1 million plus to see more inventory now compared to 1 year ago. So where are the home sales clicking? Well, the home sales are clicking essentially more so on the upper end. So where inventory is down only modestly, sales are still clicking along. But where inventory is down significantly, which is on the affordable price points, sales simply cannot click because of lack of inventory. Again, repeating, plenty of buyers. Buyers want to make that contract, but just a lack of inventory is hindering that process. If we look at another way to view that buyer enthusiasm remains strong is the following. This is the days on the market. So what one finds is that generally during the winter holiday season, say from Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, there is a timeout period. Many people want to spend time with family. They said, well, I'm going to start my home buying process in the spring market. So people just essentially postpone. So the days on the market generally rises during the winter months. Not this past winter. This past winter, aggressive buying activity, days on the market never increased as in the past winter. Again, demonstrating very strong market demand out there. Howard County at 6 days on the market, clearly being much swifter than the national conditions. Now, if we look at the number of homes that is sold above list price, this is quite a remarkable situation. We are seeing in some states, essentially half of the homes are being sold above list price. Now, from realtors' perspective, you have to price it right. You cannot list too high or the appraisal problem comes in. So you have to do it what you think will meet the appraisal. But look at the situation. Now, Maryland is a relatively smaller size state geographically, so I put it on the right column. So Maryland, 42% of homes that are sold currently is above list price. So this is a remarkable situation where there's such a strong demand. And again, we need more inventory. Just 2 days ago, NAR President Charlie Opler and several of the large brokers across the country had a meeting with a White House economist. And we relayed the information to say we are short on inventory. And they understand that. They understand that as part of the infrastructure spending plan they are doing, they're dedicating some funds for affordable housing. That is to say, maybe we could spend some money to refurbish some of the uninhabitable property. So it's currently vacant, nobody wants it, but if we boost it up, maybe that's a source of supply. Also looking at maybe way to reduce the lumber prices. There is a tariff on Canadian lumber, but if we can reduce lumber prices by importing more Canadian lumber, that means more job creation in Maryland, more local job creation. So looking at some of those factors, we also relayed the information to say, what about the possibility of removing capital gains tax on investor home sales? Some of the real estate property are not owner occupied, but it's a real estate investor. But without the capital gains tax, maybe some of the investors want to unload and bring more supply. But that response from the White House was that no, they're not interested in reducing capital gains tax, but at least they want to see some numbers. So we're going to generate some numbers to see potential impact. Because we said we need more supply. Supply is the path for home ownership, especially for the first-time buyers. But right now, the demand being exceptionally strong. The other trend that we are monitoring is the rising mortgage rates. As you know, mortgage rates are a tad higher, a little bit higher now compared to December, January. December, January was an all-time low. Red line is the mortgage rate, by the way. Red line is the mortgage rate, all-time low of better credit score a little lower, people on the sort of marginal credit, higher interest rate, but on average, a little above 3%. If some of your clients are wondering, should I wait for mortgage rate to go back down to 2.7%? Say highly unlikely. It's more likely the mortgage rate will be higher longer person waits. I think by the year end, December of this year, we may hit 3.5%. And why do I believe the mortgage rate will be rising? Well, the blue line. What is blue line? That is a 10-year Treasury yield. This is the interest rate the government pays to borrow money. And we have a stimulus after stimulus, infrastructure spending. All this is raising budget deficit, raising the national debt, printing of the money to finance it partly. And some of the people who are buying US government bonds are getting a little nervous. And they are saying, no, I need a little higher interest rate given the very large deficit condition. So the blue line is rising. And when the blue line rises, nearly always red line get tilted higher. So given that the blue line has been rising, I think the mortgage rate is definitely likely to rise higher in the upcoming months compared to, say, a declining, retreating back down. 3.5% forecast for year end, higher mortgage rate. Then you have to take a deep breather, step back and say 3.5%. You know, that's not that bad because considering, historical mortgage rates, 3.5% is still very attractive rates, particularly in a job creating environment. We have a stimulus after stimulus to kickstart the job creation, and jobs are coming around. So the jobs are coming around. So as more people have job security, I think they will look at 3.5% and say, that's not that bad. We just need more inventory, more supply, and hopefully some of the material costs for the builders, lumber prices begin to moderate and come down, which will help on the more supply. The other data point that I'm monitoring very closely is the following. Consumer price inflation. This is the price of grocery, price of airline tickets, rents and everything. And generally the Federal Reserve, who controls the monetary policy, they always have said that they would like to keep inflation under 2%. So I put that 2% line, red line, as essentially the sort of target. So if inflation pops above 2%, then Federal Reserve is trying to do something to reduce the inflation, like maybe even raising interest rates. But there is a change in monetary policy. Jay Powell, central bank chairman, along with Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, are now beginning to say that, well, maybe we should not consider 2% as the maximum. 2% should be an average. So what is this change in language? What does it mean? What it means is that if the inflation rate is 3% next year, no problem. What about 4%? No problem. Why? Because 3%, 4%, along with 0% inflation essentially of last year, averages out to be about 2%. So they're saying essentially they want to average it out. So higher inflation is possible given changes in sort of the language on what they want to pursue. And we are already seeing rise in oil prices and realtors who have to drive around frequently. It has some pocketbook issue. So oil prices are already rising. And the other area where I think the inflation will begin to pick up is on the rents. Rent increases have really fallen during the pandemic because when we had that massive job losses, April of last year, 20 million job losses. Many young people working at a restaurant, working at a hotel, they went straight to parents' basement because the rental demand collapsed. But what we are seeing now is that rental demand is now picking up because of job creation. So if the rental demand is picking up, it just means that rents will, I think, will begin to rise in the upcoming months. So from about 2%, maybe the rent will go back up to what it had been, about 4% increases. Because we had a housing shortage also in apartment. And with the rental demand now returning with job creation, I think the rents will inevitably rise in the later months. So you have oil prices, the food prices also rising, and then rents rising. I think that will begin to push up the inflation rate. And the impact of the higher inflation is that it also impacts mortgage rate. Mortgage rate also generally rise if there is a higher inflation, which is the reason why I am saying that mortgage rate is likely to hit 3.5% by year end. Let's look at the job market now. This is the monthly job changes. April of last year is the massive job losses of 20 million in America. And then we had the CARES Act, which provided some initial stimulus money. If you remember back then, most Americans received $1,200 in a stimulus check, small business loans, which people do not have to repay. And the realtors who had no activity could file for unemployment insurance as an independent contractor, first time ever. And I want to thank again President Shirley and others involved in the association governance and activity where they provide feedback to us and we lobby and we say, look, realtors had no business for a couple of months during the lockdown and that shouldn't be left out cold. So people had access to unemployment insurance and also the mortgage forbearance, meaning that people who lost job and they happen to be homeowners, are they going to lose their home? And so we wanted to assure that they don't lose their home. So the mortgage forbearance program was in place to say you can skip mortgage payments as long as you can demonstrate economic hardship until you find job. Now that the job creation is coming around, hopefully people can come out of the mortgage forbearance. But in the early months, 5 million American homeowners were in mortgage forbearance. Today, the number is only half that, 2.5 million. So at least 2.5 million people who are very nervous now have job and they're out of the program, but we still have 2.5 million. Now, of course, with any federal program, we cannot have an unending deadline. So it will steadily wind down. And as things wind down, you may see some people in mortgage forbearance needing to sell their home as they come down out of this program. And that could be source of additional inventory. Again, we have plenty of buyers, but it will not necessarily be a foreclosure because prices have increased so much, they can simply do a normal sale. So let's hope they can find job and come out of the mortgage forbearance and do the normal, but there will be some people who are meeting the time deadline and they cannot find job. And those homes will need to be sold, but I think it will not be a foreclosure sale because of price increases. Note also in this chart that by October, November, December, things were fizzling out, job creation was fizzling out. And that is why President Trump, towards the end of the year, signed that second stimulus. And many people received that additional $600 into your checking account, an additional $600. President Biden came in and said $600 is insufficient. So he bumped it up so that now most Americans, I think recently received $1,400 additional. So now you see some job creation occurring and hopefully this stimulus is sufficient to get us to the herd immunity because medical experts are saying, look, America is making great progress on vaccination and maybe by autumn we have herd immunity. That means that we can go see ball games in person, go to indoor dining without a problem, travel, other normal activities, sense of normalcy, because there is a sizable savings that people have accumulated, including stimulus check, and all that money will go back into the economy and lead to quite a robust situation. One interesting thing that I would also, just out of curiosity, non-economic activity, is the European Union. Their vaccination progress is virtually zero. They're not making any progress. I mean, they're doing another lockdown. So as they look towards America, where we may get back to normalcy, they were saying, look, America is back to normal. Why are we stuck in another lockdown? So maybe some degree of jealousy as well as anger develop in Europe. And some people may say, why do we even have this European Union? You know, that could be a huge political consequence as to what may happen in Europe as they look at America and America being almost back to normal. But right now, the job creation is occurring because of the some stimulus and herd immunity potential in place in the US. But stimulus, again, is not a free lunch, it's larger budget deficit, and that's why mortgage rates are rising a bit. This is the picture for the US job market over the past 20 years, and just focus on the more recent months. So you see the massive job declines and some recovery, but we are only halfway there. So this is where President Biden is saying we still need to focus on the economy, while people, the Senate Republicans would say, no, we already provided sufficient stimulus. Maybe the economy can recover on its own. But those are normal political debates. But if we look at the Baltimore, Howard County region, what you are finding is the following. You look just similar to the US trend. So if you look at the red line is the year 2000. So this is the US, red line. So you look very similar to the US condition. So this is Baltimore County, Columbia, Baltimore City, the greater Baltimore metro area. But look at the DC metro area, which include Montgomery County, the Prince George's County, Northern Virginia, just way up. Now people say Washington DC is recession proof. Just yesterday, I went to Washington, D.C. And drove around, no traffic. I mean, normally there would be massive traffic because of this huge job growth, but work from home has completely changed some of the dynamics. And given that work from home could be a new normal, workers have demonstrated, office workers have demonstrated they can be equally productive working from home. There could be some change in policy even with vaccine. Rather than come to office 5 days a week, it could be 3 days a week. Maybe people don't have to come to an office on Mondays and Fridays. And if that's the case, why do people need to live in DC? Or why do they need to live in Montgomery County when they can go to Howard County where commute is longer, but they don't have to do as much commuting as before if it's work from home. So I think this could benefit Howard County. Same thing situation, where some people are saying, I want to live close to Baltimore, that's where the office is, but now they can go to Howard County and say, no, I don't mind the longer commute because I don't have to commute so often. So let's see what happens. And this is the job market across the US among different states. So Maryland is down 6% from 1 year ago. Virginia down 4.8%. New York down 10.8% because Governor Cuomo in New York said, I want to have a strict lockdown. So he refused to reopen the restaurants and such. So he had hampered the economic recovery, but the intent was to contain the coronavirus. The only two states with more jobs today compared to 1 year ago is Utah and Idaho. They have more jobs today compared to 1 year ago, but as you can see, nearly every state they are down somewhat, and Maryland will be about the national average. And I think I'm coming to an end, so bear with me on the forecast. So the forecast is the following. The first quarter numbers are being tallied up, and it looks like it's gonna be up about 15% from 1 year ago, the first quarter. The second quarter, it will be up 40% from 1 year ago. And you shake your head and say, no way possible. Until you remember, second quarter of last year was artificially low, lockdown. So you said 40% increase, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. Third quarter change. Fourth quarter will actually be slightly lower from 1 year ago because of higher mortgage rates. Now we are creating jobs, but higher mortgage rate will squeeze some buyers. If you believe this is a reasonable assumption, reasonable forecast, what do you get in 2021 is that in 2021, home sales annually will be 10% above 1 year ago. I know we don't have inventory, but whatever is showing is clicking. So because of the clicking along, the home sales in 2021 will be roughly 10% above. Office leasing is not there. Our commercial members are really facing challenges, but this is the work from home phenomenon. So work from home, where I think the Howard County could be one big beneficiary. So my final slide is that mortgage rate in 2021 on average would be higher, 3.5% by year end. We started at 2.7. New home sales, whatever the builders build, they can sell it. Existing home sales, I went through the logic as to why we will be up 10%. Home prices in no danger of a decline, up 7%. So the industry revenue would be up 17%. The membership number will be rising, about 5%, but the revenue will be rising more, but still is a very, very competitive environment. So best to you in your business. Overall backdrop is, I would say, a very good condition. So thank you for having me. And now I'm going to turn it back over to President Shirley.
Shirley, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yep. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Dr. Yoon, please put those in the chat and we will be glad to ask him while he is still with us.
I have a few to get started that broker, a few brokers sent in to the staff. Thank you, Dr. Yoon. We have one. It says, is it possible that you can shed light on the numbers of agents nationally who are licensed today compared to over the last year to 5 years? So I guess they just overall a general comparison to where we are now with people licensed in the United States versus a year to 5 years ago.
5 years ago, our membership was about 1.25 million. This year, I think we will reach 1.5 million, all-time high. So that's a 250,000 gain in overall membership. It is what it is because NAR cannot control that. I know some members are saying, can you restrict the entry, so that we have only half the membership? And if we were to do that, Department of Justice would be all over us to anti-competition and part. So it is what it is. But the rising home prices, I think it was one of the facilitator for increasing membership. Whether or not we top out, I think soon we will be topping out, and I think the membership number in say next year or next 3 years will see modest declines. So I think all the association need to prepare for some modest declines in the membership. But right now, some people who are unemployed, they're saying, well, what do I do? And some people say, why don't I give a real estate a try? Maybe it fits me, or some people try it out and it doesn't work. But right now we are seeing record high membership.
So what do you see for the forecast beyond 2021?
So in 2022, I think the key question is what's going to happen to inflation and mortgage rates. So I gave you a likelihood of inflation being stubbornly high. So if it remains stubbornly high, I think the mortgage rate will continue to rise. And as it continues to rise, even in a job creating environment, it begins to squeeze out the buyers. The monthly payment does not work in the ratio. So in 2022, I think the key thing is look for inflation, look for mortgage rate. If neither rises in any meaningful way, I think you will be continuing increase in home sales in 2022. But if the mortgage rate begin to reach up to 4% a couple of years from now, I think this is when we begin to see some fall in home sales.
Do you think we'll see more foreclosures?
Foreclosures, I would say, will continue to be very minimal because as people come out of the mortgage forbearance, again, I hope they come out because they found a job. But even those who cannot find a job, I think it will be a normal sale because of the price increases.
Okay. Does anyone have any other further questions? You covered a lot of great information for us.
Absolutely.
As usual. And we certainly thank you for your time. I know you'll be probably zooming around the country today and all this week, giving good presentations. So thanks again for your time, Dr. Yoon, and hopefully we can have you back in maybe 6 months or so.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All righty.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.